G'day and welcome to another big edition of the RDFNL Footy Show. Thanks to our friends at ONTIME Delivery Solutions. My name's Yeendy. I'm joined by Tara Murray from the Star Weekly. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Certainly an exciting end to the RDFNL home and away season. I know we've got finals, which we'll talk about later on in the week, but we had some big games over the weekend and we've got some sides getting into some great form heading into finals.
It is, and obviously we find out which sixth team made the finals, and for the second year in a row, Romsey has got in on that final round. So I think last year they were outside the top six heading into the final round, and this year they were as well. So they've had, I don't know whether it's luck or it's just timing, but they've ended up making that top six again, and Wood and Heskett just misses out.
Well, let's talk about them because they do head in this game on the back of some pretty good form, holding Broadford to 1 point. I think it's that could be the lowest score of the year.
It is, and obviously I spoke to Corey O'Sullivan Saturday night, and he said they made a real focus defensively of restricting Broadford, because Broadford actually kicked, I think it was 7 goals against Diggers Rest the week before, which was probably, besides their wins, was probably one of their better outcomes for the season. So they made a big thing defensively for the Redbacks, looking at trying to shut down the scoring options. They have one scoring option because they know come finals time they're going to have to be on defensively. They're playing a lot better forward lines than Broadford, so they need to be on board for that. And Corey O'Sullivan said, look, they thought they were going to play finals. They thought Riddle were going to get up, and he said they're yet to play their best footy this year. He doesn't think they've played as good as footy as last year, but they're still in the exact same position they were 12 months ago.
Were they a little bit concerned that maybe, given Woodend's form, that it might have been enough for them, or could they look at the scores at quarter time and gone, well, it looks like Riddle are on their way?
I looked at the scores at quarter time and thought exactly that as well. So you look at that, speaking with Corey, he said they think Riddle's the best side in the competition. So they were pretty. And
they played them the previous week and actually played some good footy against them too.
Exactly. So they were pretty confident Riddle would get the job done. But saying that, the week before they played Riddle, they had played Wood and Heskett, and Wood and Heskett was pretty good that day. I was up there watching that one. So obviously there was always going to be a few nerves, but in the end the Redbacks got the job done, and now they play probably one of the teams they've got their greatest rivalry with in recent years. They played in a couple of grand finals, and I think the last 3 matches there's been not much between these two teams, so it's going to be quite an interesting first up finals for the Redbacks when they face Diggers Rest. The
best thing for the Redbacks is that they have they kicked accurately on the weekend, but they're heading in there with some great form. Speaking of Diggers Rest, they are in incredible form with a strong 80-point win over Melton Centrals. We know it's been a tough year for the Centrals, and as footy fans, I think we're disappointed that they kind of, after that win against Wallen, have sort of just faded out a little bit. I know they've had a few injuries, which has been a bit of concern. But, you look at Diggers Rest, they are starting to really get in the gear at the right time of year.
It is, and obviously I think with Melton Centrals, they've probably just run out of legs. They did have a tough draw this year, and they knew that. I think their last 4 matches, they've had Wallen, Rupertswood, Macedon and Diggers Rest, so they've had the toughest end to the year of any club, and obviously the minute the injuries hit, they probably don't have the depth as some of those other sides do have. Where obviously Diggers Rest, it was only an 80-point win, but speaking to Jamie Lobb, he said that was probably their best 4-quarter performance of the season. So as you said, they look like they're going to be hitting their straps at the right time of the season. They've still got another 4 or 5 players to come back in. They hopefully think they might get 3 back in. So Cale Mawson's definite, but among those other ones they've still got out, they've still got Stuart Clark and Brent Tuckey. So you've got 2 key players from their premiership side a couple of years ago. So they're building at the right time of the season. We all know what experience they've got. We all know what they've done in finals previously. They're definitely a team to watch come the next few weeks.
As for Centrals, I think there's a lot of positives that can be taken out of the year. I know there's a lot of confidence heading into 2019 that they'll really will strengthen up, and they've shown a lot of positives this year to show that with the addition of maybe 2 or 3 quality players, they will play finals next year.
And look, and obviously I spoke to Matt Sproul before the season, and he said we will be a better side this year, but it may not reflect on the wins and the ladder.
And he's been right by that, hasn't he?
He is. Look, they knocked off Wallen. They took it up to Rupertswood for a few quarters the first time the 2 teams played.
Absolutely smashed Wood and Heskett.
They beat Sunbury Kangaroos. So they've had these results they weren't getting in previous years. Plus they've knocked off all those teams they're expected to. I think they played Lansfield, Broadford and Rockbank only one each. So you get them 1 each, and they're basically guaranteed wins for those sides. It does make it a little bit tougher. So they have had a tough draw, but it will set them in good stead for the next few years. They managed to get a couple of recruits in this year. Dylan Weir was probably the big one down there at full forward, and he finished in the top couple in the league goal kicking. So you've got someone like him. If you get a few more players into that side, a little bit more experience, they'll probably look to get an add in. They're definitely a side to watch in the next few years.
Macedon starting to get in some form, heading into finals with a big win over Lansfield.
It was, and it was sort of what we expected. In the end, it was only 1 goal for Lansfield, so pretty disappointing and a pretty tough day. But the Cats would be looking to bounce back. They've been a little bit up and down heading into finals. They lost to the Sunbury Kangaroos the week before, so they had to drop this one to Lansfield. Yes, they were playing finals, but you could basically just write them off if they had lost to Lansfield in that final round. But looking at it, you had Jason Cook kick 5 goals, so we all know that he's come back to the club midway through the season, then went overseas, so it's been a little bit up and down, so that's probably his best return. And you have Matthew Knox kick 4. Yeah,
certainly right there. They're starting to get that forward structure. I still think the biggest problem for the Cats is that Errol McConnell, you take him out of that lineup, which obviously he did go down early in the year. I think it was against Centrals with a season-ending injury. And then even Sean Harrison, he hasn't played footy this year. I'm led to believe he's still registered with the Cats, so he might be able to come back in 2019. But you take those two speedsters out of that lineup, it makes a big difference to their midfield.
It is, and Casey Summerfield has missed several games as well. So
he's been injured a lot of the year.
He's been in and out of the side with injuries. So you take those guys out of their midfield, they do struggle. They do still have a lot of class in there. And obviously Matt Dick, Daniel Markworth have been two that have sort of stood up recently. Jack Mills is another one who was named best on the weekend. So they still have a lot of class through there, but it's probably that little bit of extra depth that they haven't got in the midfield. Saying that Zach Smedley has stepped into that midfield role and has probably had to step up from being the 3rd or 4th best midfielder to at times being the number 1 midfielder. So it does get those guys through the side, but they probably don't quite have that depth they had last season.
Riddle had a big win over Wood and Heskett to complete the final puzzle piece for 2018 in the top 6.
It is, and obviously the Hawks needed a good start against the Bombers, and they didn't get that. I think they didn't kick a goal in the first quarter,
correct.
So their finals hopes was sort of game over at quarter time. I think last time these two teams played, the Bombers absolutely dominated, then the Hawks kicked 8 goals in that last quarter to make it a little bit more respectable, but there wasn't this time. It was a complete dominant performance by the Bombers.
I think the Bombers as well, they were struggling the previous week against the Redbacks. The Redbacks sort of took the game up to them. So for them, their winning streak continues to, I think it was a 13 to finish out the year, but that they're able to probably get a better performance heading into the finals now.
It is, and that's what they want. Obviously, they do finish second,
yep.
Which, considering they lost their first 3 matches, a lot of people would have gone yes or no, but we have, as have we seen in previous years, the Bombers start poorly, and then they start to build, and they've got a number of different options. Hayden Ross, who has won the league goal kicking, so we've seen last year Jason Cook did that as a smaller forward, kicking it the same as with Hayden Ross as well, and he can play in that midfield still, so they've got that flexibility. They've had a lot of youngsters come through the side as well, so it's not just relying on those older ones. They've made a big focus of bringing the under-19s through the side, so they've got a lot of depth there, and look, a lot of people are saying they're the premiership favourites.
And when you've won 13 games on the trot, you can't really sort of fault that. Sunbury Kangaroos and Rockbank, the Kangaroos kicked well beautifully and had a really big win over the Rams.
Could have been a lot bigger if they had have kicked straight. They kicked 24-22, so they still won by 146 points, and it was a domination in that one. The Kangaroos were looking to finish on a high, obviously beating Macedon the week before. They put a lot of confidence, and look, they got a couple of players back for that final round. Ty Cuff was one of them, and he was named in the best. But you look, they have 14 goal kickers across the board, so everyone sort of chipped in. Mitch Strafe kicked 4 goals, and he was named in the best along with Ty and Matty Walsh, so some of their experienced players. And it was a good way to finish a tough season for the Kangaroos. They always knew they didn't have that depth, and then that was compounded by injuries and player availability, and they just weren't able to get going. They did show at times they can match it with those top sides. They did beat Macedon, they did beat Wood and Heskett, and they should have knocked off Wallam early in the season as well. So you look, if they had got a couple more wins in those matches they were in, they could have been really pushing for finals, but unfortunately it was just a tough season for them.
Burjo didn't really register too much on the goal scoring front, but as you said, they had plenty of supporters up forward.
They did, and that's at times they've shown that. They've got different guys kicking the goals. They're not relying on 1 or 2 just to get them across the board. So look, you have 14 different ones, then that's telling you you've got a spread of players going forward and kicking goals. But we're seeing that across the season. Burjo's kicked a couple of bags, but probably hasn't dominated week in, week out like some of the other key forwards in the competition.
What do you make of that loss for Rockbank?
It's been a tough season for Rockbank. They've had injuries. They've struggled to get their best side on the park. We always knew it was going to be a tough year. They always said it was going to be a tough year. So look, for them it's about building. They keep they've had 2-3 years in this. Whether they can get a few more recruits in over the off season, add a little bit of more experience, and see them climb up the ladder. I know they're getting everything right off field. Now they'll start putting a little bit more money into the on field side of things and get them back up the ladder.
I still think they're sort of the best 6 to 8 players. You could basically put them into any of the top 6 sides, and they'll have just as greater impact. I think they've got that. They've got their top third is absolutely outstanding.
Who's that?
For Rockbank.
Rockbank. Yeah, that's it. They've got the top class, but it's that extra depth.
Yeah.
And that's sort of where they struggle a little bit. Obviously, the Cameron boys are a couple there. Alan Greenwood.
The Baumgartners.
The Baumgartners, yep. You had Tom Maney, who was named dressed on the weekend. So you do have a lot of class in that side, but it's just getting that extra support for them. And probably a little bit of standouts, those stars to go around them. Obviously, these are all good players, can fit into most sides in the competition, but probably a couple more stars around them they need.
Let's talk about the game that we both had the privilege to get on and watch, and it was the blockbuster Rupert's Wood and Wallen, although the final score suggested that it wasn't quite the outcome we expected.
It was a little bit of a disappointing match, actually. The first time I've got down and seen Wallen, and it was disappointing from them after half-time. You look, Rupert's Wood came out of the blocks, kicking against the wind.
Yeah, the wind was sort of blowing across the ground.
Yeah, and that's they've normally got the scoring end. Normally the scoring end is the change rooms ends, but it was the other one. And then in the second quarter, Wallen sort of hit back. I think they kicked 5 goals in 7 minutes to take the lead, and there was not much in it at half time. But then after that, it was all the Sharks. They probably could, if they dominated the control of the play, and probably if they had been able to get on the scoreboard a little bit earlier in that last quarter, it could have been a lot bigger score than it was.
It was very interesting because we did have a little bit of rain hit the first 5 minutes of that third quarter. The Pies went from kicking 7-2 from 9 scoring shots in the first half to 1 goal 8 in the wet conditions in that third term alone. So the same amount of scoring shots, but not quite the return. And by then, the game was already beyond reach.
Exactly. And look, I think the Magpies would have been a little bit disappointed. They have at times dropped the ball for just periods of time. So it might be a half or a quarter. And whether that's the little bit of inexperience of this side, they haven't played a lot of finals together, where when you play these sides that have been in finals year in, year out, they have that experience and probably don't have those down patches as much as sides that are still learning. But in the same time, you look, Wallen still finished 4th. They still played some brilliant football. They knocked off Rupert's Wood earlier in the season, so they come finals time, if they get their best football out there, they're definitely still a contender.
Rupert's Wood looked fantastic. We had Dylan Featon and Brent Swallows, a couple of other guys. Greg looked very strong up forward as a good target. Really loved the contest between him and the Doc, Michael Mannix, the captain there. It was very intriguing to watch.
And as Rupert's Wood kept reminding me, you didn't tip them again. So
absolutely.
They keep reminding me that every time I'm out there, tell you to tip us. So they say that week in, week out. And obviously you talk about players for the Sharks. You had Dean Park come back through the reserves, and speaking with Nick Ash, he said Dean should come back into seniors next week. Plus Brett Chambers is another one who looks likely to come back into the senior side as well. So they've still got a couple of players to come back into that side.
It'd be hard to find out who you will take out of that lineup, but it'll make it very interesting as we do talk up finals a little bit later on in the week. Tara, thanks so much for joining us, looking back on the final round of the home and away season for the RDFNL, and we look forward to catching up with you later on in the week.
Thanks for having me.